Hi, so I wanted to share about something that I saw in a meditation today that I feel has a real message of wisdom and hope that was of benefit to me, and I feel like it could benefit other people, and I feel like it's important to share, because it relates to what's going on in the world, and it relates in particular to the topic of control. So what I saw was a prison, and people in the prison, the prisoners in that prison, were being kept individually in cages. And the prisoners represented humanity. And in particular, they represented the aspect of humanity that wants to oppose control with force instead of power. So force comes from a place of control, whereas real empowerment comes from a place of love, and it comes from a place of hope, right? So control always comes from a place of fear, and real empowerment always comes from a place of love. So the prisoners represented humanity, in particular the aspect of humanity who opposes control through fear and through force. So for example, people who are rioting, and the prison guards in the prison represent the people whose job is to uphold the law and to impose the control and, the powers that be, as it were. So what I saw in my mind was, first of all, the first thing I saw was the prisoners escaped from the cells and they started rioting. So they managed to break out of their cells and they started rioting in the prison and wreaking all kinds of havoc in the prison. But they won the battle, but they didn't win the war, right? Because what happened was they were just put back in their cells, and there were stronger locks put on the doors, and there were more prison guards employed to come and work in the prison, and there were stricter control measures on the prisoners. So they won the battle, but they didn't win the war. So all that happened was that there was more control that was imposed on them, So what they thought was going to work actually ended up making things worse and not better, So although they were coming from a place of, maybe they were coming from a good place of trying to break free, what they were doing actually didn't work, So it's kind of a good analogy to represent what's going on with people that are rioting, So the next thing I saw was that the prisoners realised that they weren't going to get their freedom by using force and by going against the law. So the prisoners accepted that they were being kept in the prison, and instead what they decided to do was they decided to uphold the law, but to feed their spirits. So to raise their spirits. So what I saw was all of the prisoners started singing. All of the prisoners in the prison started singing, and I saw all of the prisoners with their voices raised in song, and they were singing and dancing in their cages, you know. So the prisoners in the prison became so absolutely free, you know, that it was as if they weren't in prison at all, you know. That literally the walls and the cages, like physically they were contained, right? But there was nothing there were no bars that could contain their minds and their hearts and their spirits, you know. So it's a good analogy because there's no cage, because it kind of illustrates the difference between power and force, you know, because there are no control measures there's nothing that can contain the awakening of humanity, right? So it kind of illustrates the idea that there's nothing to fear from control, right? If someone's trying to control you, right, they're coming from a disempowered place. They're coming from a place of fear, you know, and it illustrates the fact that love and feeding your spirit and feeding your mind is the greater and more powerful force, you know, because what happened was the prison, you know, went in the vision I had in my mind, you know, the prisoners became so full of joy that the ripple effect went on to the prison guards, you know, and the prison guards were so overcome with compassion and joy as well that they unlocked all the doors and they let all the prisoners go free, you know. So yeah, so that's my vision for the awakening of humanity, you know, and I felt it was important to share because it illustrates, people think that love is the weaker, people think that love is weak. It's not. It's the stronger force, you know, it always is. And if someone's coming from a place of control, you know, you should feel sorry for them, you know, because they're limited, you know, they're being small, you know. So if someone's being controlling, then you should feel sorry for them, you know. They're not coming from a place of power. So anyway, I just wanted to share that, and I hope it resonates.